Positioned well is what I've titled this. Positioned well with expectation. We can expect but not to be in a position to receive whatever could come with our expectation. We could be positioned well with no sense of expectation. But I think that the Lord wants us to be positioned well and have expectation. Expectation is a bit like faith. Believe that something's going to happen. It's not going to be the same as it's always been. Something's going to happen. You know, there's this cool scripture in the Bible that something like, nothing is impossible with God. And so, for me, it's true that it's impossible for God to do nothing. Because to do nothing is impossible for God. It's a bit of a twist on the scripture, but God's always active, He's moving. He's doing something. He's always doing something. Let's be fresh in our expectation that God's going to do something. When we first go on with the Lord, there's so many new things that are going on. It's not hard to have expectation and to be fresh because God's doing such a rapid work in our heart. I mean, one day you might have not known Jesus and following Him, the next day you might be following Jesus. That's a rapid change. So in the early days of your faith, if you've experienced that, there's rapid change and transformation that you're seeing all the time. Like, whoa, man. And it's fresh in your natural brain what life was like before. But how easy is it to get into a rut of just taking for granted the life that we've been given in the Lord? That we have Jesus, that He died on the cross. I love my heart to just break every time I think about the cross. For it to be so fresh and expect that God is still at work in my life every day. Because I think that's the desire of God. Not just to change your life in the first few weeks of your salvation, but to continue to transform our lives week in, week out, year in, year out, and to remain fresh with Him. You know, there was a guy in the Bible, he was taken to a place. Well, do you remember the pool of Bethesda? He was taken there like every day. He was in expectation for something. Who knows, he didn't get what he expected. He wanted to get in this pool that had all these natural minerals and stuff spring up, and it's interesting when you look in the background of the scriptures whether it really was an angel or whether that was some tradition that came in that... Whatever the case was, the guy was there and he was expecting something. Jesus stepped in that moment of expectation, gave him something he didn't even expect. And now we're going to read another story as we continue on in Acts about someone that was positioned. This guy was positioned here year in, year out, week in, week out. He was in this condition for a long time. Let's just read. Peter and John went to the temple one afternoon to take part in the 3 o'clock prayer service. As they approached the temple, a man lame from birth was being carried in. Each day he was put beside the temple gate, the one called the Beautiful Gate, so that he could beg from the people going into the temple. When he saw Peter and John about to enter, he asked them for some money. Yeah, wouldn't like that. And then Peter and John looked at him intently. And Peter said, "Look at us." The lame man looked at them eagerly, expecting some money. But Peter said, "I don't have any gold or silver for you." That's a bit of a letdown in that moment. "But I'll give you what I have. in the name of Jesus Christ, the Nazarene, get up and walk. Then Peter took the lame man by the right hand and helped him up. And as he did, the man's feet and ankles were instantly healed and strengthened. He jumped up, stood on his feet, and began to walk. Then walking, leaping, and praising God, he went into the temple with them. Who knows, like if you haven't walked from birth, you haven't got the muscle in place. You haven't got the strength in place to start walking, let alone start leaping, walking and leaping. I would have loved to have seen those legs. As he got up, I mean like this. That would have been so cool. He didn't need to go through a year of rehab. He just got up and walked and leaped. Unreal. Well, I'm not talking about stories that happened a long time ago, like story tales. This actually happened. All the people saw him walking and heard him praising God. When I go into church, are you one that people go, man, I keep hearing Noah praising God, it's so loud. Maybe that can be one day. When they realised the guy who was walking and leaping and being very loud, praising God, I mean, you wouldn't really care. If you've been like having this brand new experience, you don't really care about what you look like in front of other people. Your sense of insecurity or what people might think about you, that is not in the equation when you've just had an absolute amazing miracle take place inside of your legs and your ankles. And he's just out there. You know, I wish we were a bit more like sporting matches, you know, where we got excited a little bit sometimes in expectation for something. I tell you what, the crowd doesn't stay dead quiet until the goal's scored. The crowd goes crazy at the expectation that maybe a goal could be scored. There's a thing called home crowd advantage. I'm seeing this very clearly in what I've seen thus far with the Warriors-Cavaliers games, and it's not looking good for the little bit I've seen in game 4. I'm not looking at anyone, especially over there. But there's a thing called home crowd advantage, because the crowd in your hometown is on your side. And they are cheering and they are expecting and hoping with the people there. There's some big crowds. I went to an NBA game when I was in America. The crowd is loud and it's raucous at the hope and expectation. If a team's behind and they get a little bit of hope that they can maybe possibly go ahead, they go off their heads. They actually, this is a real thing about a crowd getting G'd up. And they have these things called crowd silencers. When you're the away team, you want to silence the crowd because the crowd is powerful in building momentum for the home team. So there's a big sense of momentum and faith and expectation lifting in the crowd about the home team winning. What happens is the other team needs to do something special to silence the crowd. And what they do is they might come up and do an amazing three-pointer. They may come and do a massive dunk. They're trying to silence the crowd because the crowd is so important in the result of what's going on. Who knows that yelling and screaming is not going to put a basketball through a hoop? But you know what? It kind of does. There's home crowd advantage in every sport. Generally, people win more at home when they're surrounded by people full of hope and expectation that they're going to win. People don't want to turn up. Like, if a team's not doing very well and the hometown expects that they'll lose, they struggle with crowd numbers. Who knows if you've got a winning team You're going to attract the crowds because they're going to come with hope and expectation that their team is going to win. And when the crowd's silent, it has actual effect on the game. It's a real thing. Even though yelling and screaming, chanting and cheering doesn't physically do anything, we're not like robots. We're people that are emotional, that gets built up and light for things in God. If we remain silent until we see something, well, what kind of expectation is that? You know what? There's one thing God loves. Do you know what it is? He loves faith. In fact, it says you can't even please Him at all if you don't have any faith. If you don't have faith, you're not going to please Him. And you know, as in a sporting game, you don't know who might score next, but you're excited and cheering them on for whatever may happen to get you across the line to win. And with God, we cheer Him on, and we expect that He'll do something. Maybe we don't even know what it is, but we cheer Him on and we expect Him to do something, not even knowing what He might do. I didn't even finish reading the scriptures. They all rushed. Anyway, I'll finish it so I can keep going on. And when they realised he was a lame beggar they had seen so often at the beautiful gate, they were absolutely astounded. They all rushed out in amazement to Solomon's colonnade, where the man was holding tightly onto Peter and John. You know, that lame guy didn't have much hope for his life other than to get gold and silver. That's what he thought he was coming to the temple for. One good thing, he kept going to the temple. That's a place he recognised he was a place where he was going to potentially receive something. He didn't know from who, he didn't know how much, but it was in the confines of some kind of financial benefit. So he positioned himself to receive. Outside of that, he had no hope to live, but he positioned himself well. Other people rallied around him and got him to the temple and carried him there. So he expected that day, as every other day. You know, Jesus walked into the temple regularly. He would have seen Jesus. Jesus would have walked straight past him. Peter and John were going regularly to the prayer meeting. Peter and John were walking past this guy. But something was different that day. Who knows why? I don't understand how God works a lot of the time. It's a great big mystery. But for some reason, on that day, something was different. On that day, there was a breakthrough about to happen. As Peter and John were walking into the temple, something rose up in Peter and John in that moment, and something lined up, and there was a breakthrough and a great miracle. Do you know what? Not even Peter and John were expecting anything like that to happen that day. They were expecting to turn up faithfully to pray. They weren't planning anything other than to turn up and pray. They were positioning themselves well. But when something occurred inside of Peter that didn't ever occur inside of Jesus in that moment when he walked past, that never occurred inside of them any other day when they walked past, when the Spirit or something just inkled away at him in that moment, he was ready to listen. He was ready to respond, and a massive, awesome healing took place. Jesus said he never did anything without seeing the Father do it first. He was so consolidated in his ministry, he just did what he saw the Father do. And I don't know why, but he walked past this guy, but that happened that day. I remember hearing a story from Bill Johnson. He went on a big crusade. He goes, it was amazing. God healed so many deaf people. And then he realises, he looks at his son who's deaf. And they're like, it's not like they haven't prayed for him. And his son says, I'm one day closer. I'm one day closer. Living with expectation. Not even knowing when, where, how or what, but living with hope and expectation that God is going to do something. You know, one guy, he was the best disciple out of all of them, but he made a mistake one day. When Jesus rose again and he showed up to all his disciples, there was one missing. Thomas. He didn't turn up that day. What a bad day not to turn up to church. When Jesus himself appears through the wall. Oh, he didn't position himself well that day. By his grace, he was able to see Jesus. The father of the prodigal son positioned himself well. He was in expectation. But that's the thing about God. I mean, we're called to have hope in God. But do you know that God has hope in us? I don't know about you, but that's not even or fair. Because I know me. But Jesus, it was for the joy set before him that he endured the cross. For the hope of the future. For people like me and you. I don't know about you, but having hope in God, I mean, I'm not great all the time. But having hope in God is a lot easier than having hope in someone else. Do you relate to that? But God has hope for us. These fallen beings. And I know myself. And I probably wouldn't put as much hope in myself than God does. So if I'm struggling in myself, I put the hope that God has for me. You know, God has hope for you. And you might not have hope for God. But put your hope in the one that has hope for you. You know, when I was in year 12, I didn't really do anything at school much. I enjoyed playing sport at lunchtime or whatever, but I realised my plan of becoming a teacher, that was just in the background of my brain since I was in year 4. I hit year 12 and I realised, oh, you actually got to get marks to get into uni. Oh no. And in a moment I was really rocked. Like, I knew what my marks were like. They didn't let me go for captain at the school because my marks were so bad. I mean, I did lots of great things for the school and whatever, but they just really want to emphasise that year about being an example in academic life. Fair enough, that's what you're there at school for, to learn. And if some guy's not showing a great example in that, whatever. But I didn't have much hope for myself. I looked at what the score was, and I looked at what my marks were, and I'm like, oh, there's a great gap. And I remember talking to my neighbour at the time, and that person said, you know, you'll get in. I know you'll get in. And at that moment I decided, well, no, I'll just trust them in their trust for me. Because I don't think I can, but whatever. And I got in, and I got a slightly better mark than the captain, which was great. But if I can do that with a person, isn't it great to have someone believing in you? Right? Because we don't always believe in ourselves. It's great to have someone that believes in you and sees in you. And that's why it's so important as God's people to just to see past the veneer of everyone's life. To get a bit deeper than just the surface. And see what God sees in people's lives. Because God wants to use us to encourage each other. Not like, superficial encouragement. But actually be able to see past the veneer of people's life and speak into who God sees them as. That's a prophetic gift that we need to see occur more and more naturally and normally in our day-to-day lives. Be able to see past maybe even what they themselves see and pull out something that God sees in them. Because God is a God of hope. But the father of the prodigal son, out of everyone that was there, he had servants, heaps of servants. He had another son. But he was the one that was going to position himself. He was going to make sure, because he had the most hope and the most expectation, that his dirty, rotten son, who wasted half of his money, was going to come home. He positioned himself waiting. He could have put people on watch. He was wealthy. He had people at his disposal to do the job, to be a watchman. But he wanted to be there first. And one day, it wasn't like the first day the father went out and looked. He went out every day in hope and expectation that his son would return. He positioned himself every day, even though the other days nothing occurred. But that day something did occur, and the prodigal son actually returned. Do you know who the worst placed person was in that story? Was the older brother. He was the last to find out that his son was going to return, and I think he had the least hope that he would return. In fact, when he did return, he despised the fact that there was a party for him. See, in God, we can't be that older brother. If you feel like that person, you can't be like that anymore. It's not the heart of the Father. The heart of the Father is to hope and to love. Real love never gives up. It always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. And you know what? That day didn't fail either. When the Father loved, it didn't fail. And the prodigal returned, and he was right there to receive him. But there was someone in the back paddocks who was not ready to receive him, and even when he did come back, he didn't like it. Let's not be that one. Let's be well positioned and full of expectation and hope in the face of the ugliest things we may see around us. We may see a lot of ugly things around our lives. I hate the sin and what it does to me, but I hate it around the world. It's gross. But you know what? In the face of the most intense rejection, Jesus looked at those scoffers and mockers, people that he was called to save, spitting in his face, the ones that had beaten him over the head, the ones that had ripped his back to pieces and put a crown of thorns on his head, stripped him fully naked in front of everyone and shamed him. And while he was dying on the cross, continued to mock. And he looked at them with a hope that none of us will ever understand. And looked with hope and said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. It was for the joy set before him that he endured the cross. He had so much hope in the face of so much evil. This world is going, it's just bad. It's ugly. What society is starting to accept and saying it's so great is ugly. Sin-riddled. It's gross. But you know what? Even in this atmosphere and environment, and no matter how bad the world gets, there's a hope that's stronger and more alive than any of the evil that's around us. It might look hopeless, but the Father hopes in the face of the ugliest evil situation. And that's what he wants you to carry. It's what he wants me to carry hope in the face of the most hopeless looking situations. Love never fails. And that's for your life, and that's for the lives around you. In Hebrews 11 and 12, it talks about these great people of faith who were commended for their faith because they died believing without even seeing promises fulfilled. They died believing. That's a great challenge for me, because I can believe for a few weeks and then I need to fire up again. I will say out of my mouth, I will die believing. I'll laugh a week. Oh, Lord, would you work on our hearts that we would be so steadfast that we would die believing. Seeing a trail of things that God has done and continuing to believe. On our deathbed, continuing to believe. When we suffer, I looked up the word suffer, and it occurs a lot more in the New Testament than the Old Testament. And a lot of the times it said people came to Jesus suffering this, that, and he cured them and healed them of their afflictions. And other times it says in the New Testament that we share in the sufferings of Christ. I don't know if you're suffering. But allow even the situation of suffering to draw you close to Jesus. To share in the sufferings of Christ. Just picture what Jesus did, We'll never go to the extent of the suffering Jesus did. But even in the midst of suffering, let that be a God time in your life. To grow and develop you. And still be in expectation that God We've had people, I've had a person, a beautiful person, who has had a passion for VAS and invited their neighbours to come. And they've come, but she hasn't been here. And it's such a tragedy. What a tragedy it would have been if Peter and John decided, I don't really want to go to prayer meeting today. That guy wouldn't have been raised that day. What a shame if the father was like, the impact wouldn't have been there if he decided not to wait that day. The story wouldn't be complete. What a tragedy. And so with Freedom Church, it might sound crazy, it's not necessarily the right thing, but I feel a conviction that to try and stay open every Sunday, because I don't know who might come. I don't know who might be reached. I've told people about this place. Not that it's the point of only hope. The hope goes with me when I leave. The hope for our world is not about just coming to a meeting, it's inside of us. I heard a story from Lee B about an encouragement that someone was able to receive tremendous encouragement from Lee B's life in the face of not feeling very up. You know what? I have felt very low for a while. And then I got an encouragement. I think that God just likes to drop in an encouragement every now and then just to keep you sane and keep you going. Because He knows we're weak. He won't put us, let us go through or test us more than we can handle. And sometimes He gives us reprieve with an encouragement. Not that Jesus needed that. He was able to endure. He was the bomb. But us, we need that encouragement all the time because He knows we're weak. And I'm feeling so empty. I've been feeling depressed and terrible. Don't feel sorry for me. It's just a reality. I want to be able to have an atmosphere of church where we're real because we're weak, right? So I'm feeling like this, and it always comes in my head. I've said this before. Man, I'm carrying the hope of the world, and here I am around people that don't know the Lord. I feel like sometimes I am doing the worst. And David said that, didn't he, in some of his psalms? Oh Lord, why are the wicked prospering? Well, not that I'm saying people are wicked around me, but why that? And look at me, Lord, like, And then God came through again and again for David, and he was described as a man after God's own heart. But I got an encouragement. I shared that. On Friday, I'm picking up Samson from school, and I'm talking to the teachers for a while about how to spell Isaiah, because I don't know what happened with our last one, but he's motivated to write letters. Didn't get it from me, didn't get it, it's not like his older brothers at all. It's quite refreshing actually. So they want to know how to spell Isaiah. I go, yeah, it's Isaiah, blah, blah, blah. It's the same, we've got the spelling from the Bible. Anyway, we talk a bit more, and then the teacher goes, it was so funny. Samson said to her, Silas's scooter keeps getting stolen at church. I mean, that might seem a bit funny, but she thought that was hilarious because it brought in a sense of normalness in the realm of church. Like, go to church to get your scooter stolen. It's like, he doesn't care about talking about church. And then just work it out, not trying to push or just get the right moment. And then the teacher's aide, well, I honestly haven't felt a great connection. I'm always sensing connection and where that's going, like if there's opportunities or anything or where it might be going. But she kind of whispering to me, oh yeah, it was funny the other day. They're all arguing about who's the boss, my dad's the boss. And then Samson said, no, God's the boss. And she's kind of whispering because it's like, I'm talking about God in that setting. It's not believed right? And I was like, oh, that's good. Because you worry about your kids and what you're doing in life and you don't think you're making an impact anywhere. That's a lie from the enemy. If you don't think you're being effective at all, that's a lie. And I certainly wasn't feeling very effective at that moment or in previous weeks, But it's like, thank you for that nugget, Lord. It's like God said, hang on, let me just show you a little bit of what I'm actually doing, eh? Okay. Keep going. Okay, I'll keep going. We shine His light wherever we are, even if we don't feel it so wonderfully around our life. It's interesting. There was a survey. Not I don't know what was worth putting up. Might not put it up. This is really interesting. I'm not saying we have to live by this, but it's just done across Australia about how people respond to Christians. It's really interesting. You can't read that, but I will venture forward. It says top attractors to religion and spirituality. Oh, there we go. Top attractors to religion and spirituality. And it said the top level of attractiveness to Christians, basically, is seeing people who live out a genuine faith. Second one, those that experience personal trauma or life event and get through it. Third one, stories or testimonies from people who have genuinely changed because of their faith. And the repellents actually are interesting as well. They hate it when there's genuine. Not that we have to live by surveys, we live by the word. But philosophical discussion and debating ideas. Done it a few times. And most of the time they've been fruitless. And then 26, close bottom 2. People telling them miraculous stories. And then the worst is hearing public figures and celebrities who are examples of that faith. But it's interesting when they try to get a response of Jesus, the 50% of people associated Jesus with love and all sorts of amazing things. So you might be going through hardship, but people are seeing that and watching how you're responding to it. Just see if this real God thing is real. You know, with the miracles thing, now I'm going into a second sermon, but Peter and John made sure they emphasise Jesus. Because what do you expect? Of course this is a miracle. What do you expect? Now let me tell you about Jesus behind it all. I was talking to a guy I really respect because he's gone through some stuff. I don't know if you know Caleb Murphy. He was a teacher at Cornerstone. He's been through stuff and we can relate way too well on many levels of just enduring through hard times with our spouses. Health-wise. But he was saying God really revealed to him that he'd been idolising healing, idolising a gift, rather than let it be an expression of just who we are and what we do. You know, it's interesting, I'm not saying it's wrong, but Peter and John didn't go to the temple for a healing service. It happened in that moment. Just miraculously amazingly well. Going off the track a little bit more, I'll come back on track. And tie in what other people have been saying recently about enduring and hoping and being steadfast and being positioned well. Have you got that point? Position yourself well with expectation. Even if it looks hopeless, just expect. Because you're going to make a difference. Our expectation makes a difference. If people come into a church meeting and they expect, the atmosphere is different. It's alive. And it feels like there's much more possibilities of able to be fulfilled. You know, when people come with expectation. That's why sometimes people go away to conferences or a special thing and they go, because it's different and out of routine, they come with so much expectation. And God does some seriously cool stuff just because we come expecting. If we don't expect God to do anything, it's likely that God won't do anything. If we expect God to do something, He'll do something. He's always doing something when we position ourselves well and expect. You know, you're going to find a whole lot more gold digging than staring at the surface, waiting for the gold to pop out of the ground. And Dave said it, you mentioned it, you know, it's like we're 3 feet from gold. And it's nice to have a measurement. Go, okay, I can do that. But in a sense, we should always just live feeling like we're close to something happening. And we're living in something where things are happening around us. What I feel to do now, I'll get you to play some music in the background, that helps. I'm going to pray for some people. Do you know, I've asked people to come forward for prayer for healing. I've ended up having a prophetic word for them. And then pray for healing as well. It's like, oh, I didn't mean that to happen. I know you didn't come here for that, but it's just come up. What I'm going to ask you to do now, I can't preach about this without doing something practically, at least in the service. I hope that we'll just carry this on in services and in our life. I'm going to pray for you, that you will be healed if you need healing. And hope that we will come here just expecting whatever may happen. Is that a good idea? Now, I've got that music in the background because do you know what grips so many of our hearts? We live in fear that our team will lose, more in the hope that our team will win. When a team's not doing well and they've got a track record of losing a lot, people are like, oh, they're never going. Oh, I thought, they totally lose their home crowd advantage even though they're at home. And I don't know if you feel like you've had losses. I don't think in God, I think we go from glory to glory no matter what our situation is. But if you've expected something and it hasn't come through, you might turn your heart and let your heart be gripped with the expectation of nothing. That's expecting nothing. But I want to encourage you to expect something. When I pray for you, I'm going to ask God to pray for me, pray for you too. That when I pray for you, that God will do something.